So hello everyone, we are back again with our latest video on SQL tutorial Ebikacho by Ebikacho Group. And this particular video, we are going to discuss each and everything you need to know about triggers in SQL Server. And this will be a detailed video, and every aspect of trigger we are going to cover in this particular video. Now move on and check what we have in the next slide. So here, first of all, need to know that what are triggers in SQL Server. So a trigger in SQL Server is a type of stored proc that is automatically executed or fired in response to a specific event occurring in a database. Okay, so basically triggers are nothing but these are a special kind of store procedure that are executed once certain activity will happen in your database, like insert happen in a table, update happen in a table, or a table is created, deleted, or something like that has been happened in the database. Then in that scenario, one special store procedure we will trigger, that is known as the trigger. So this can be triggered after or before also, before that event or after that event, or instead of that event. If you want to apply something else, then that case we can also handle using the trigger. So trigger are very important thing. So for interview perspective also it is very important, as well as while you are going to work, then in that time also you are going to use trigger very much. Okay, so now move on to the next thing. So what is the these are the event can happen. So what are the events that can happen? So data modification like insert, update, or delete operations that we have discussed, and then schema changes like create, alter, or drop command happen, or user login can happen. So in that case also we can create a trigger for auditing purpose. So triggers are mainly used to enforce business rules, ensure data integrity, monitor changes, or perform automated tasks within a database. Okay, so basically by using triggers you can automate your jobs also, or something means some insert statements you can automate also. Like if you want a certain table to be inserted whenever someone is going to create a table or insert some value into a table, then you can apply a trigger on top of that particular table, then that will be automatically executed. Okay, so we will check in the examples. If you didn't understand here, then you will for sure understand in the examples. Okay, so what are the types of triggers? So in SQL Server, generally we have three types of triggers, which are DML triggers, which work with the DML statements like insert, update, and delete. And then we have the DDL triggers that operates with the DDL commands like create, alter, drop, and logon triggers that work with the logging of the database. Means that we log in, do the login. Then in that cases, these logon triggers are in operation. Okay. Now move on to the next slide. So next what we have, so types of trigger in detail. So DML triggers. DML trigger triggered by data manipulation language, DML event like insert, update, and delete on table or views, as we have discussed. So can be used to enforce business rules or audit changes. Okay, so basically we can use DML triggers in both cases, like enforcing the business. If we have some business requirements, then in that cases we use the DML triggers. Or if we want to do audit or audit for a database certain table, then in that cases also we can use the DML triggers. Okay, now second we have the DDL triggers. So DDL trigger are triggered by data definition languages. Okay, events like create, alter, drop statements. Okay, now useful for monitoring and controlling changes to database schema. Okay, this is clear. Now we have the third one, which is the logon triggers. So logon trigger basically triggered by logon event when a user session is established or someone log into the database or started a session. Okay, and then often used for auditing or controlling user access. So basically using this particular trigger we can control the user access also, the logon trigger. Okay, now move on to the next slide. So let's start with each of the triggers one by one and see the example of these triggers and how to create these triggers and how to work with these triggers. Okay. Now DML trigger. So DML trigger are further classified into two categories, like after trigger, also called the for trigger. Okay. So basically DML trigger can be mentioned like after trigger and then instead of triggers. So after trigger is also called as the for trigger. Okay. So what the after trigger will do? So after trigger triggers or fires after the triggering action, like any insert, update, or delete action will happen, then on that after that it will happen the after trigger. Or instead of triggers, instead of trigger works or fires instead of the triggering action. So basically in case of instead of triggers, the insert, update and delete will not happen in the same table where we have applied the trigger. Okay, so now move on to SSMS and check first how the DML triggers are created and how they are working. So basically we have one create table statement for employee table that we are going to create, so that this tutorial will not take much time, because creating table and deleting table, updating table, we have already discussed in previous videos, so you can check from there. Now basically we start from creating the table. So here we are creating one employee table which have ID column, which is integer, and identity column. Then we have the employee name, which is a varchar, and then employee salary, which is integer, then employee gender, which is varchar, and then department ID, which is integer. So basically, if we have this table, now do a select star on the employee table. So select star from employees table, employees underscore table. Okay. So basically, what kind of case you will get? So if we have a table like employee table we have, and then we want, if any record will be inserted in this particular table, then we want at what time this particular record has been inserted and how many records are getting inserted into the table. So we will create one login table for this. So create one now. So create table, and then table name, login, or employee table update, employee employees underscore table underscore updates. Okay, so this is the table name, and then here we will capture the ID, means which ID is getting created. So basically ID here we will keep like integer, and the ID we will take from the employee table, and then we will create one table like uh, 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 let's take time. We will take record created time. So record created time. Okay, record created time will be our get date. So date time. Okay, date time. Okay, and ID and record created time is fine, or something else we can use. So ID is fine, and then event we can mention. So event, events, event detail, event details. Okay, so here we will capture what event has been happening in the table. So varchar 50. Okay, now create this table, put a comma sign here. Now this login table. So what we want here, so we want here, like if any detail is going to insert in this employees table, then we want this table to also to be inserted with these values, like ID value, which ID has been inserted into that employee table, and then event detail means what event has happened, like table record inserted, record updated, or record deleted, and then we want the time at which the certain event has happened. Okay, so for this we can create one trigger on top of the employee table, and then we will use that particular trigger for inserting the values into the employees table update. Okay, so how to do this? Now write a trigger. So for creating a trigger, basically the syntax is very simple, like it is same as that of the procedure stored proc, but a bit different. So create trigger, and we are going to create a after trigger. So create trigger tr underscore the table name, employees employees underscore table, and then underscore on insert on insert on insert on insert. Okay, on insert event we are going to insert the value in login table. Okay, and this trigger will be going to execute once the value is going to insert into the employees table. So create trigger name, and then on which table, so you want to mention on, and then the table name. So table name will be employees underscore table, employees table, and then after. So either you can use after or you can use for also. So first we will use the after, and then in the next example we will use the for. Okay, so after insert after insert, and then as, then begin, and then end, and in between the begin and our query will come. So before proceeding with creating the trigger, first of all we need to know a very important concept like about the magical table. So there are two magical tables that will work when you create a trigger. So these are inserted and deleted tables. Okay, so first move on to the ppt and check what are inserted and deleted table, then we will proceed with creating the trigger. Okay, so next slide we have. So what are magical tables? So these inserted and deleted tables are also called the magical table in terms of SQL Server. Okay. So what are magical table or inserted and deleted tables in SQL Server? So in SQL Server triggers, the inserted and deleted tables are special memory resident tables that store copies of data affected by insert, update, or delete operations. So basically, whenever we are doing a insert, update, or delete, so one inserted table and one deleted table is getting created inside the area of trigger. Okay, so basically the scope of this inserted and deleted table is within the trigger itself. Other than that, it will not work. Okay, so these tables are used within triggers to access the state of the data before and after the modification. Okay, so now what we will do, first of all, we will write the inserted table. So here we will use begin and end, and then we will check what records the inserted and deleted table are capturing. So select star from inserted, SCRTED, inserted table, and select star from deleted table, deleted table. Okay, so basically this inserted and deleted table will hold the latest value that is getting inserted into the employee table. Okay, and it will be executed inside the trigger only. Outside the trigger, if you will try to execute this, so if you try to execute this outside the trigger, then it is not going to execute. So what it is telling, execute it first. So see, invalid object name inserted. Okay, so basically the scope of this inserted and deleted table is within that trigger itself. Okay, now create the trigger, and then we will try to, so this is the trigger that we have, and from where you will check the triggers. So into SQL Server, you need to go to programmability, and then store procs, no, database triggers. Okay, then database triggers. So I think we need to refresh this. So first refresh this. Okay, and then expand the database trigger. Oh no, it is not working. One second, let me check the store proc, it is coming or not. System store proc. Okay, so as you can see, this particular trigger has been created. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to insert some values into the employees table, and then we will check how the trigger is getting executed. Okay, so basically write the insert query for this, insert into employees table, and then values what we will provide. So values and what columns we have, so we will check here. So ID column we have the employee name column, employee salary name column, employee gender name, gender column, and then department ID column. So basically ID is the identity column, and employee name, for employee name we will write like John, 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 and then the next value what we will provide. So employee salary, let's take 50,000, 50,000, and then gender will be male, gender will be male. Okay, male, and then we have the department ID. So department ID, let's take 1. Okay, and now insert this particular value into employee detail table. Okay, so when we execute this, what result we are getting, let's see, because a trigger on top of this is also available. So here you can see this is the value we are getting, and in the trigger what we have mentioned, we are selecting the inserted and deleted tables. Okay, so inserted table, what it is providing, it is providing one value. Okay, which is going to be inserted into the employee table, and deleted table is providing no value because no delete is happening currently. Okay, so this is clear how the inserted and deleted tables are providing the value. So basically the inserted table and deleted table will have the same structure as that of the table on top of which the trigger is working. Okay, so now what is our requirement? Now our requirement is to insert the value into this employee table updated also whenever the value is inserted into this employees table. Okay, so first of all drop this table. So drop table, employees table we are dropping, and then we will recreate this. So create table and then table name. Okay, this is created, and then again we need to create the trigger for this. But here we will do what? So inserted and deleted table everyone has understand. Now we need, let's take the id. So in employee update table, what we have in update employee update table, currently we have no record in employee tables. So id, employee name, employee salary, employee gender, and department id. And we will check this table also, employee update table. So select star from employee table update. Okay, so here what columns we have? We have the id, event detail, and record created timestamp. Okay, so basically now remove these queries are not for use. We can remove these. Okay, and these query you will get on our telegram channel. Okay, so don't worry about that. If you want that, you can comment us, we will provide the queries there also. Okay, so now we will create the trigger, create trigger tr employee table on insert and on table name after insert as begin and end. So what we need? So first of all we need the id column, okay, which need to be inserted into the update table. So id, which id we will pull? So the same id which is going to insert into the employee table, that id we are going to pull. So how to pull that? So in inserted table, as we have checked, currently we have that value. So we will first declare a variable, declare declare at the rate id, and this id will be coming from the inserted table. So select at the rate id, and the data type of id will be integer, and select id equals to, select id equals to what? So id from id, select id equals to id, and then from inserted table. So inserted, inserted table. Okay, and now what we need to do? We need to insert into the employee table update. And what values we need to insert? One second. So insert into this table, and then values. So values will come like this. Okay, so this table, what are the values we have? So values will come like id, at the rate id we will take, and then we are going to take event detail like value inserted, a hard coded value we will use here. So value inserted into employees table. Okay, and then we need the record created time. So record created time will be get date, means whenever the query is getting executed, the same date we will capture. Okay, so get date. Okay, so by using this particular table, this employee table update, whenever the trigger will happen there, then we can be able to find out easily which record has been inserted into the table and when it has been inserted. Okay, and also we can capture the user's name also, but here we have the single user, so that is why I'm not capturing that particular thing. So we are going to capture the id and what action has been taken. So it is on insert trigger. So insert events we will capture. So value inserted into the table name, and the date, get date we will take. Okay, so execute this. And now when we are going to insert the value in this particular table, so insert into employees table, and first currently check this particular table. So employee table is empty, and that employee table update is empty. Okay, now let's execute this insert statement, insert into employees table and John value. So when we execute this, so see, one row affected and one row affected. So two rows are affected. So how two rows? One row is inserted into this employees table. Okay, and one row is getting inserted into this employee table update. So what are the records here updated? So see, id 1, and then value inserted in employee table, and then record created time is the current time it is providing, get date. Okay, so 11/4/2025 Okay, that is clear to everyone. Now how to create trigger, it is clear. And then we will check, and this insert trigger is also clear to everyone. After insert trigger is also clear to everyone. Now move on and check how to create a trigger on delete on update function. So if we are going to update something, some value in that employee table, then how to create a trigger for that. Okay, so currently we have one record. So select star from like employee detail table, employees table, employees employees underscore table. Okay, and now we need to check if some value has been updated here. Okay, so what we are going to capture, we are going to capture like id, and id we will capture, and then we will show a print a statement like this particular id has been updated. Okay, so for that particular purpose we will create our trigger. So how to create a update trigger after update trigger? So create control r, write down the query, create trigger and then trigger name. So tr underscore table name, employees table, yes employees underscore table, and then employees table on update okay, and then we need to provide the table name on which the trigger is going to create. So on employees detail table, yes employees detail table, employees table, sorry, employees table, on employees table, and then we will write like after or for, this time we will use the for. So for and after both are same words. Okay, in trigger. Okay, so we will apply for update. So whenever update will happen in employee table, then we are going to do some action. Like what action we will take? We will print a statement like there is an update in this particular id. So how to do this? So as now begin and then end. Okay, so here we need to write like first we will fetch the id. So for that declare a variable, declare at the rate id which will be integer, and from where it is going to come? So it is going to come from the inserted table. Okay, so select at the rate id equals to id from inserted table, inserted, from inserted table. Okay, and then what statement we are going to print? So print the statement like uh, 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 update some some update has been done at at id equals to, and then our variable will come, id equals to plus some space also we will provide. So space we can add here also, so this will work from here also. Okay, so space, give a space after the id equals to, and then place your variable. Okay, so this particular trigger we will use for after update. Okay, now execute this, and this is the final query. So command completed successfully. Now what will happen if we are going to update some value in the employee table? So employee table we have a one value currently. So now John salary we are going to update to 75,000. Okay, then see how the working will happen. So update table name, employees employees table, and then set emp salary equals to emp salary equals to 75,000. As we have only single record currently, so we don't need to provide any condition here. Okay, so this is clear to everyone. Otherwise you must need to provide the condition. Otherwise what will happen? All the records will get updated with the same value. Okay, so be careful while doing updates. So now when we execute this update statement, then see what output we are getting. Okay, execute. So conversion field, when converting. Okay, so basically here what in the trigger what we are doing, in the trigger we are concatenating the varchar with a id value which is integer. So we need to first cast this into varchar and then we will achieve this. So write alter trigger, then trigger name, and then how to alter this, we need to cast this particular id. So declare the id as varchar 50. Okay, and then cast this id to varchar. So cast id as varchar 50, or varchar we can also write, this will also work. Okay, now what we need to do, cast id as varchar from this. Okay, this error is negligible. Now execute this alter statement. So command completed successfully. And now when we are going to update this particular value, then see what is happening. Okay, one record has been affected, and what statement we are getting in return? So some update has been done at id equals to 1. So similarly, this particular record we can even store in a table also, or else we can log somewhere, so that we can check what updates are getting happened into our tables. Okay, and SQL Server will allow you n number of trigger you can create on a same table. Okay, using different methods. So now after this, insert trigger is done. After insert is done, after update is done, now we will check after delete. Okay, so how to create after delete trigger? Now move on and check. So first select star from employee employees underscore table. From is missing here, so from employees table. So currently we have single record, and then we are going to delete this particular record. And what we will do, so similarly we are first we will check what deleted table is providing currently, what deleted table is providing the output. As we have seen for the inserted and deleted, we have not seen because no delete has happened currently. So we will check for the record of deleted table. Okay, and this particular you can use somewhere else also, means log that delete option. You can delete log it while you are going to practice. Either you can print or you can insert into a table also. Okay, so first of all, check how the after delete trigger is going to create. So write the statement create trigger and then the trigger name. So tr underscore table name employees employees underscore table underscore on delete delete on delete, and then put the on delete and then on table name, on which table, so on employees table. Okay, and then for or after delete, and then what we want, so after delete as begin and then end. So we need select star from inserted and deleted value. Okay, so we will check what the inserted and deleted tables are providing us the value. So select star from inserted and then select star from deleted. Okay, now this is the final query. Execute this, and this is the syntax how you are going to create a after delete trigger. Okay, now execute this. So command completed successfully. Now delete the record from employees table. So as we have a single record, so we don't need to provide any condition. We can directly like delete from employees table. Okay, so delete from employees table. So all record it is going to delete, and we will check what the deleted and inserted table is capturing. So see, in this case, inserted table is not capturing any record as no insert is getting happened, and deleted table is capturing the record which is getting deleted, and the format of both the tables is same as that of employees table. Okay, so I think this much is clear to everyone how to do after insert, after update, and after delete trigger, how to create them. Okay, now move on and check how to create after instead update, instead insert, instead update, and instead delete triggers. Okay, so basically what they will do, they will execute some event before or in place of inserting record into employee table. If we are going to insert that record first into some other table, and then we are going to insert into our own table, which is employees table, then in that case we can use the instead trigger also. Okay, so let's take, if we have a condition like select star from employees table, emplo employees table underscore table, and we have a condition like this is a main table. Okay, employees table, let's take example, in your company employees table is a main table, and everyone cannot insert value into that. Only some particular professionals can insert some values into that, and before others can write the query for insert, but that particular value will not go and insert into the table directly. Before that it need to be inserted into some other table. From there the auditor will check that particular record, and if it is proper, and then he or she will transfer that particular record to the employees table. Okay, so how we will do this? So for this we will create one table similar to that employees table, and then insert that value into that table first, and then from there we are going to insert into the employees table. Okay, so for creating a duplicate table for employees table, how we will do this? So we can do like select star uh, select star from select star into and then the duplicate table name. So these things we have already discussed in our previous video, so you can check how to create a duplicate table and all. So these are already discussed. Okay, underscore duplicate from employee detail table, employees table, from employees table. Okay, so now execute this, and then a duplicate table with the same name. Currently we have what table? So you can expand the database and check. We have employees table and employees table update we have. Now we are going to create employees table duplicate. So execute this, and 0 rows affected as employees table currently don't have any record, and you will see the table has been created here. Now refresh this. So employees table duplicate is created. Okay, and now when you do a select star on employees duplicate table, so select star from this, select star from employee table duplicate, then we are not getting any record, but the structure of this particular table is same as that of employees table. So now create a table, create a trigger which is going to insert value into this particular table first, and then after checking that we will insert the same record into this table later on. Okay, so how to create for that? So we will create a insert trigger. Okay, so the syntax for that is create trigger, and then trigger name tr underscore table name employees employees table, and then what is this? So the on which table we are going to create? So on employees table we are going to create employees table. Okay, on employees table, and then instead instead of insert insert instead of insert as, and then begin, and then end. So instead of inserting value into employees table, what we are going to do? We are going to insert value into employees table duplicate. Okay, so copy this, and from which table the value will come? So the value will come from the inserted table, the magical table, as we have discussed previously. The inserted table will capture the record which is getting inserted. Okay, so now write down the query. So insert into our duplicate table, and then select star from inserted table. because inserted table will also have the same structure as that of the employees table, and the same structure is there in the employees table duplicate. Now this is the query for instead of insert. Okay, now execute this. Okay, an explicit value for the identity column in the table not possible. Okay, so basically we have identity column as the first column in this employees table, so this we will remove as identity. Okay, so how to do that? So you can right click on the table name and then go to design if you have the access. Okay, and then click on the table column which you need to remove the identity, so id column, and then expand this. So these things we have already discussed in our previous videos, so from there also you can go through for a detailed description. So here when you come down, then you get one tab like identity specification. Then here just you need to mention like is identity, you need to mention currently it's on, so we are putting it off. No, is identity no. Okay, so now this is it, and then you need to save this particular table, employees table duplicate, save. Okay, this is clear. Now execute this, this will execute now. Okay, so command completed successfully. Now insert some values into the employees table. So what is happening? Insert into employees table, employees table, and then values. So what values we need to provide? First we will execute. So id is the identity column, and then employee name. So employee name we will take like uh, John. Again take John, 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 and then we will take, so open the parenthesis, and then after John we will take the salary as 15,000 this time, low salary. Okay, and employee gender will be male, so male. Okay, and then department, let's check 2 this time. Okay, now execute this and check what will happen to this, because we have already created a instead of insert trigger on top of the employees table. So when we execute this, so see, one row affected and one row affected. So what it has provided? So first select star from employees table. So employees table is empty, no record has been inserted here. But when we execute in this particular table, select star from employees table duplicate, so it captures the value for this. Okay, so id is coming 0 because id is identity column in the employees table. So that is the reason it is coming 0, because id has not been generated, no record has been inserted into employees table, so no id has been generated. So we need to mark this particular table also as identity of. Okay, so do you understand this now? Now move on to the next thing. So next what we have? Next we have the instead of update. So instead of update, how we will do? So if any value is going to update into the employees table, then we will apply the instead of update trigger on top of that table. So first of all, some insert some values into the employees table, so we will drop this particular trigger. So how to drop a trigger? So this is also very important thing to know. So for dropping a trigger, you just need to mention drop trigger and then the trigger name. So trigger name will be our tr employees table. Okay, and then execute this. So this particular trigger is gone. Okay, now insert some values into the employees table. So 2 3 values we will insert this time, as we are going to check updated. So then we will put a record for Mary, and Mary, she is a woman, then comma, then 30,000 salary, and then female, and then department will be 1. Okay, so 2 record are enough for now. We will check the update instead of update, and then we will insert some records. So insert into this table, incorrect syntax near 1. Okay, comma is missing here. So first check record has been inserted or not. No record has been inserted. Execute this. Okay, so 1 or 2 record has been affected. So one record is affected from that previous trigger that we have after insert. Okay, now execute this, and then we have the 2 records like John and Mary record is there. Now update the record and create a update instead of update trigger. So what we need, so let's take, we will send a print a message this time. Okay, so we have two records currently from employees table, and now we will create one instead of update trigger on top of that employees table. So it is not going to update the values, it is just going to print like some update is going to happen on employees table. Okay, so how to do that? So create, so basically instead of function is means not allowing you to do some action on top of the main table. Okay, so create trigger and then trigger name tr underscore table name employees employees table, and then instead of update. So what on which table? On employees table, employees underscore table, and then what we need to do? Then we need to write instead of update. Okay, so instead of update, what it is going to do, as then begin, write in capital so that it will look good, begin and then end. Okay, now here we are going to print a message like some updates are, so print what we will print, some updates need to be done on employees table. Okay, so this message it will print. Okay, now execute this, and we can also check how the inserted and updated values are working here. Okay, so we can alter this particular trigger. So for altering, you can use the alter command, alter trigger name, and then the statement you can alter that. So similar to that of procedure store proc. Okay, so store proc, very good video we have uploaded on our channel. You can go and watch that particular video also, so that you will get the knowledge of what is a store proc and types of store procs, and how we can use that store procs in our queries and all. So store procedures are very important thing that you need to know for becoming a SQL developer or database developer or anyone who is going to work on data field. Okay, so now alter this, alter trigger name, and then first we will do a select star from inserted and then select star from deleted, and then we will print the value. So select star from inserted and then select star from deleted, and you already know that what inserted and deleted tables are. Okay, now execute this, execute. Okay, command completed successfully. Now we will update some value in the employees table. Okay, so what we are going to update, we are going to update marriage salary to 45,000. Currently it's 30,000 and we are going to update it to 45,000. So update table name, so employees table, employees underscore table. Okay, set salary, employee salary, emp salary salary equals to 45,000, where id equals to 3. Okay, now execute this statement and check how the trigger is working. So execute. So see, so inserted has this value, means inserted is going to insert this particular value, which is the latest value 45,000 value, and deleted is having the record which is previous record. Okay, so in case of update table, update triggers, basically the inserted and deleted both tables are going to affect. Okay, so deleted will keep the original record and updated inserted will keep the updated record. And now when you execute this, and then message we will also check. So here the message we are getting, some update need to be done on employees table. Now execute this. So you can see no effect has been happened to Mary's employee salary. Okay, because this trigger is not allowing the update on that particular table. Okay, so this is clear to everyone. Now move on to check instead deleted. We are going to delete. Then instead of deleting that, we are going to update a message like don't delete this record. Okay, now open a new query window. So select star from employees detail, under employees table, sorry, employees table. So how many records we have? Currently we have two records. Okay, so we are going to delete John record. We are trying to delete. Okay, so first of all create a instead of delete trigger on top of this table. So create trigger, and then trigger name tr underscore employees, tr underscore employees, ploys employees table, and then underscore instead instead of delete, instead of delete. Okay, so instead of delete, what we are going to do, we are going to print one message that do not delete the record. Okay, so and then after this, on which table? On employee detail table, employees table, sorry, employees table, and then instead of delete, instead of delete, what action we are going to take? Instead of delete, as begin and then end. Okay, so instead of deleting, we are going to print one statement. Print, what we are going to print? Don't uh, so don't delete the value, delete the value, do not, okay, do not delete the value, do not delete the value in employees table, employees underscore table. Okay, now create this particular trigger. Okay, command completed successfully. Now we will try to delete record from this particular employees table. So which record we are going to delete? We are going to delete John's record. Okay, so delete from employees table, employees underscore table, and what we are going to delete from employees table, where id equals to 2, id equals to 2. And now we will execute this and check how the trigger is working. So first control R and then execute this. So do not delete the value in employee table. Okay, now execute this. So see, it hasn't allowed the record to be deleted. Instead of that, it has shown the statement like do not delete the value in employee table. Okay, so instead of trigger also, you know that how it is working, and instead of insert, instead of delete, and instead of update is completed, and after insert, after update, after delete is also completed. And you have also covered the magical tables which are inserted and deleted. So all these questions are must asked in interviews also, and when you are going to work in the company, then also at that time also you are going to use these things very much. Okay, now move on to the PPT and check next what we have. So next we have the DDL trigger. So basically DDL triggers will happen at the database level. Okay, so these are used to means restrict from creating table, deleting dropping table, or like that kind of activities. For DDL activities like create, alter, delete. Okay, so this trigger prevents creation of new table in a specific database. So one example we already have for DDL trigger. Basically these are mostly used by system admins, so the developers will not use these DDL triggers and that logon triggers. Okay, but for example I will provide it to you, and if you want a detailed video, if you didn't understand, then you can comment us. We will explain this particular triggers to you also. Okay, so here you can see, here we have a trigger which is not allowing to create tables, which is rolling back. Okay, so table creation is restricted from this particular database. So which database? So on database, so any the database that name is present, like SQL table, SQL triggered database is currently available. So here it will not allow any table to be created on this SQL triggered database. Okay, so let's take, we will use like for create table. Okay, now when we execute this, so we can execute and check. So we can execute for from this in a different database, because currently we are using this SQL trigger database. So might be possible we can create some table on top of that. Otherwise we can create here only. Okay, so once you create this trigger, and then you, when you are going to, let's take one create statement, or we can create one table from here itself. So create new table, and then id, and then it will be integer. Okay, and then save this table. So table 1. Okay, so see here you are getting the error were encountered during save process, some database objects were not saved. So table 1 unable to create table. So why it is not able to create the table? The transaction ended in the trigger, the batch has been aborted. Okay, so basically the trigger is not allowing it to create the table. Okay, so you can save the text. So basically database admins will create these kind of triggers so that they can restrict people from creating unnecessary tables or unnecessary updates or unnecessary deletes. They can perform like that. For those purposes, basically system admins will use this DDL triggers. Okay, now move on to the last trigger. So last what we have, last we have the logon trigger. Okay, so this trigger restricts user login to a specific hour of the day. So basically this is the example of logon trigger. So it will restrict user from login into the database for a certain period of time. Okay, so if we create a trigger, create trigger name, and then on database, so at database level we are creating, and for log on. Okay, so begin what we are doing here. So if date part hour is get date between 9 to 17. So basically 9 to 5, if someone is going to log into that database, then it will restrict them. Okay, so we can use this particular thing in different database. So create this for uh, so any other database we have currently. So we can create one database for this also. Okay, now create one database. So creating database is very simple. We have already covered these things into our previous video, so you can go and check them thoroughly. Okay, so once you go through each of the concept thoroughly, then you will understand SQL very easily. Okay, so now create a database. So database we will create from our channel name, which is SQL underscore tutorial underscore abkcho. Okay, now create this, press OK. So see, database has been created. Now we will write a new query into this database, and in this database we will restrict the user to log into this database. Okay, and then we will increase the time, like currently it's 12:08. Okay, 12:08 morning. So you can write here like hour not between uh, 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 0 to 17. Okay, okay, now execute this and check how it is working. The specified event type is are not valid on the specified target object. Okay, so basically this logon trigger will work at the server level. So basically we will not allow them to use the server itself for a particular period of time. So we will not try this currently because we need to complete the tutorial also. So you can do like this by using this query. Okay, just here you need to update the database to server. Okay, and when you execute this, so it will not allow to log into that particular server on which you have executed this. Okay, so this is complete trigger knowledge, and if you need any other detail on triggers, then you can comment us, and you can also contact to us. So then let's go and check the use case of triggers. So basically triggers are used for the following purposes, like enforcing complex business rules, auditing changes to data or schema, or preventing unauthorized schema modification as we have checked currently, and monitoring user logins. Okay, so thank you for watching. Thank you everyone. And the details on the table and all details and scripts we will find at our Telegram channel. And if you need any more detail on the same video like on triggers, you can comment us, and do like, share and subscribe, and many more videos are coming on the way. And as we have already discussed that we are going to launch a master series on SQL Server once we reach the milestone of 500 subscriber, as I want that more and more people can benefit from that particular course. That is why we are not launching that before achieving 500 subscribers, because from that what will happen, less people will be getting knowledge about that. So try to increase the subscriber, do share, do like, and do comments. If you need any help and any specific video you want, you can comment to us. So basically this request for triggers video we have already get from one of our subscriber. And thank you for watching. Thank you everyone. Thank you.